Okay, so in this, we are going to talk about physical development in adolescence into adulthood and old age, and then sex, gender, and sexual orientation. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible because I think a lot of this stuff you also get in health class. So, just so we know, adolescence is the transition time between childhood and adulthood, lasts from age 12 to 19, 20, 18, somewhere around there. Obviously, the main indicator of going through adolescence is puberty. Puberty is when we sexually mature, um, where the body starts to produce more in males, more testosterone, and in females, more estrogen. I don't know why I just wrote estrogen right there, females. Um, and this is puberty is a maturational thing, meaning the sequence is predictable. The timing is not always. Some people go through it very early, some people go through it very late. Girls generally hit puberty before guys do. And it is happening earlier in many countries, partially because kids are becoming fatter and they're eating more animal hormones. And one of the issues they're seeing with this is there's physical development before cognitive development. And then the surge of hormones is what creates the sex drive that happens during puberty. So during puberty, we get the development of what are called primary sexual sex characteristics, which are body structures that make reproduction possible. So the testicles start to produce sperm, right? The ovaries develop and whatnot. And the secondary sexual characteristics are the other aspects of puberty that don't necessarily have to do with reproduction. For females, hips widen, voice deepens in males, breast development, hair, all of those sorts of things. So the secondary aspects of puberty, these things actually start happening first, all right, and then the primary sex characteristics develop. The landmarks for puberty are menarche for girls. Menarche is the first menstrual cycle, and then spermarchy for boys, which is the first ejaculation. So those are the two major landmarks for puberty. One of the things you see big change in as you become a teenager is your brain. As we have learned, the frontal lobe lags behind the emotional limbic system. This is why teenagers tend to be overly emotional, can have emotional outbursts. That emotional limbic system can send out signals, but the regulatory frontal lobe cannot send signals back to the limbic system telling it to chill out. Also, why we have poor decision making. Okay, there's this hormonal surge. Dominant limbic system leads to impulsiveness, risky behaviors, bad planning, things like that. Teenage brain also craves reward. That is, and impulsiveness, risk behaviors give us a rewarding feeling, even if they are not rewarding in the end. So going into late or middle and late adulthood. So as we hit about late 20s, early 30s, all of our physical abilities peak and we start to go downhill. The landmark, at least for women, is menopause, which is where they see a decrease in their sex hormones, which leads to they lose the ability to reproduce and they obviously stop menstruating. They may have to take estrogen supplements to to fulfill those, the estrogen needs. Also see a decrease in sex drive. Life expectancy, 79 in the United States, it is slowly decreasing. We are one of the few Western countries that is seeing this. We don't need to worry about death deferral. Right, and then finally, as we learned last unit, our ability to think changes, crystallized intelligence increases as we get older. Okay, that is our knowledge, verbal skills, whatnot. Fluid intelligence, however, goes down as we get older. That is our ability to think abstractly, to think quickly, and whatnot. That's why doing things like crossword puzzles as you get older can be very, very helpful in keeping that fluid intelligence intact. Also see the development of neurocognitive disorders, what used to be called dementia. Hearing loss, heavy alcohol use, strokes, brain tumors can contribute to this. So one of the main ones is Alzheimer's, deterioration of acetylcholine neurons, where you see cognitive decline as well as loss of memory and emotional disturbances. All right, now getting into sex and gender development and sexual orientation. So, sex development. Okay, sex is biological. Okay, it is our biological, what we're born as what we think of as either male or female. Okay, with either XX or XY chromosomes. There are some variations, XXY, but our sex is what we are, the chromosomes that we are born with. These start to have an effect around 7 weeks into prenatal development, where the chromosomes influence the production of either testosterone or estrogen. Intersex. Intersex is a phenomenon they see where people who possess sexual characteristics, the biological characteristics of both sexes. For instance, they may have testicles, but no penis, and something that maybe resembles a vagina, or a penis and breasts, whatnot. So, and as we hit puberty, these sorts of things become more apparent. We have the primary sex characteristics and the secondary sex characteristics developed in puberty. So, how about gender? Okay. Gender is a cultural and a social phenomenon. Gender is more of what does it mean in our culture to be a boy, to be a girl, to be a man, or to be a woman. While there's agree upon that there are two sexes and then there's intersex, gender, there is a whole range of genders from, you could identify as male, female, non-binary. There's a whole range of genders, and it is very culturally influenced, and gender, culture to culture, is different. Gender role is sort of the expectations that are associated with with each gender. So, what is the role of a female in American society? What is the role of a male in American society? Right. And then gender identity is our own individual belief about being male or female, how we identify. We identify as male or identify as female. And then what do we consider to be the qualities of the gender that we identify with? A lot of this they have found is learned through social learning theory, which is through observation and then reward or punishment. See how my time is. All right, pretty good. And transgender. So transgender is a wide-ranging term where the identity differs from your gender identity differs from your assigned sex at birth. So you may be assigned as a male at birth, but you may identify as a female. It would be considered transgender. And then androgyny is when somebody has the psychological characteristics of both. They kind of fall in the middle. A picture of David Bowie right here. David Bowie was considered, his qualities were considered to be androgynous. He had both male and female psychological qualities. Overall, so in terms of gender, men and women are actually pretty similar. Our creativity and our intelligence are actually very similar. They found that women are overall are more emotional, also more likely to develop depression and anxiety. Men are more physically aggressive, and women are more relationally aggressive. Sexual orientation, that is our enduring sexual attraction towards members of a sex. Okay, all right. Heterosexual is attraction to members of the opposite sex. Homosexual, attraction to members of the same sex. Bisexual, attraction to members of both sexes. So in the US and Europe, Western culture, about 3 to 4% of men and 2% of women identify as exclusively homosexual. What we understand about sexual orientation is that it is not chosen, nor is it changeable. The views on sexual orientation have changed a lot in the past 50 years. Sexual orientation was considered a mental disorder, homosexuality was considered a mental disorder in the first Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychology, which is used to diagnose mental disorders. It is obviously no longer considered that. What they have also found is that cultural acceptance, some cultures are more accepting of homosexuality than others. Cultural acceptance of it does not change the rate of homosexuality in a population. So, what else do we know? What are the factors that influence sexual orientation? Environment and sexual orientation. Some questions: is homosexuality linked to a child's problematic relationship to parents? Answer is no. Does a boy playing with dolls at a young age make them more likely to be gay? The answer is no. Does having two dads make you more likely to be gay? The answer is no. Having a homosexual experience at a young age make you more likely to be homosexual? The answer is no. Okay, there is no evidence that there is an environmental influence on sexual orientation. Okay, no evidence whatsoever. What there is evidence for is biology. Some of the evidence for this. So they have found that there is same-sex attraction in other animals. So that would stand to, if other animals can be gay, then so can humans. They found differences in brain structures, particularly in the hypothalamus. They found that there's a larger cluster of cells in the hypothalamus in heterosexual men. It's not necessarily believed that that the hypothalamus causes sexual orientation, but they believe that it is part of a pathway that is involved in sexual behavior. They've also found that gay men's hypothalamus responds similarly to females' hypothalamus when presented with a smell of male sex hormones. Genetics, identical twins have higher rates of shared orientation. That would indicate that maybe there is a genetic influence. Also, it does seem to come from the mother's side. The gene, they believe, comes from the mother's side. They're unsure if there is a gay gene, but there's a belief that there is. And then prenatal influences, being exposed to different hormones in utero, being exposed to more estrogen, more testosterone can seem to have an effect. And the older brother effect, which is the more older brothers a boy has, the more likely that boy is to be homosexual. I think that is something having to do with changes in the chemistry of the uterus after a female has a certain number of males. So there you go, under 15 minutes. And that is it for the unit. So thank you, and I'll see you in class.